All right, Exodus 33, let's call this one blind. Not so much because I literally found the concept or the word blind in the text, but because I think that concept ties together two things that caught my attention in the text this time. And it stems from the first one being in verse 11, this whole concept of God meeting with Moses face to face. And we had a brother who brought up that question this time because there are times when it talks about him meeting with God face to face, meaning Moses meeting with God face to face. And other times when God tells him, no one can see me face to face and live, bringing out this whole concept of contradiction versus paradox. See, it's a lot easier to see that the Bible may seem to be in contradiction when you have one author saying something that seems to be in contradiction to what another author is saying. But we'll see both of those concepts. God saying you can't see me face to face, but then literally saying he can meet with Moses face to face in the same chapter. So let's see how. Verse 11, thus the Lord used to speak to Moses face to face as a man speaks to his friend. When Moses turned again into the camp, his assistant Joshua, the son of Nun, a young man, would not depart from the tent, talking about his habit in speaking to God and Joshua's loyalty, which is going to be important later on. But before we get to the end of the chapter, we're going to see something different when Moses is asking for some encouragement from God and God is agreeing. He's offering the caveat in verse 20 that says, but he said, you cannot see my face, for man shall not see me and live. Verse 23, then I will take away my hand and you shall see my back, but my face shall not be seen, describing the way in which he is going to hide Moses in the cleft of the rock as he passes by, allowing him to see his back. But I want you to think about it this way. If those of us who are blessed with sight lacked sight and we could no longer see, and we had the opportunity to still engage in meetings with folks, would we still be, in fact, meeting with them face to face, even though we could not literally see their face and describe it with our own two eyes? See, spiritually, the Bible describes many different instances in which God appeared to his own people, people who saw him, at least Jesus, in his physical form, but didn't recognize him in his resurrected body. And so likewise, we are seeing a situation where before Jesus came in the flesh, God is literally saying, I can meet with you face to face without you really seeing who I am. And even though that's sometimes the case, he, in this particular instance, towards the end of the chapter, is literally going to appear to Moses, who he's used to seeing pretty much on the regular, in a certain situation where his presence is going to come even closer to Moses. And he's going to hide him in the cleft of the rock. And in a situation where he might actually be able to perceive God, he's going to say, oh, you can just see my back, even though I want my presence to encourage you. And how important is having the presence of a loved one in difficult times? Well, that's the second issue that I saw in this particular verse, when before we get to that whole concept of God meeting with Moses face to face, in verse 14, he's going to say, and my presence will go with you and I will give you rest. See, the thing about Moses is he actually cared about God's presence. And one of the things that makes him different from what we're seeing out of the children of Israel is this particular passage in many ways connects to a concept that Jesus is going to teach in the Beatitudes, the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount, when he says, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. See, Moses hungered and thirsted for righteousness because if you back up to verse 13, what it's going to say is, now, therefore, if I have found favor in your sight, please show me now your ways. And understand that that hunger and thirst that Moses had to understand God's ways was very different than the hunger and thirst that the people of Israel were displaying over and over at this time for simply in succession. Water. We want water. We want our favorite foods. We want all the stuff that you can provide. So ultimately understand in your own relationships with people how you can have a different level of respect for those who love you for more than just the things that you can give them, and then extend that out to God and understand why his relationship with Moses was special, and how when Jesus is starting out the Sermon on the Mount, he's talking about likewise with us. If we come to God hungering and thirsting for more than just the things he can give us, then likewise he is open to having a more intimate relationship with us all, the kind that can actually give us rest as opposed to just stuff.